Namaskar. Welcome to this summary session of the first to the sixth Adhyaya of Sri Bhagavad Geeta. We start with our gratitude towards the Lord, with whose grace everything is possible. We pray to this Guru Shishya Parampara, through which this knowledge is passed on for generations so as to reach us. I pay my respects to my Guruji, Pujya Guruma, with whose grace I am able to learn the scriptures and I am able to share this understanding with you. We start with the prayer. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Bhagavad Gita, as you all know, is a dialogue between Lord Krishna and Arjuna on the battlefield of Mahabharata. The teachings of the Geetaji are summary of our scriptures, summary of the Upanishads and the Vedanta, and they are categorized well into 18 Adhyayas or 18 chapters. The main goal of Geetaji, the teachings of the Lord Krishna, is so that we get this self-knowledge, the atma jnana, or it can also be called the Brahma Jnana, the Aikya Jnana, which is the cause for our freedom from all of our pain, miseries, sufferings, afflictions, attachments, limitations, and which is the cause for moksha. But the most important step on this journey is the cleansing of our inner mind, which is also called purification of the mind, where the mind becomes more peaceful, more receptive, more concentrated, more focused. And this antakarana shuddhi is the first step. And most of the spiritual journey is spent for this antakarana shuddhi. Now, to achieve these goals, we have essentially many paths. In Geetaji, Bhagavan describes three main paths to this eternal goal. The paths to cleansing our mind, to cleanse these impurities in our mind, the shuddhi. And this path, the most important, is Karmayoga. Karmayoga takes care of our impurities, all the mala. It takes care of all the raaga, dvesha, the strong likes and the dislikes that are inside our mind, through which we automatically behave in certain way. The second path is the Bhakti Yoga, which takes care of our vikshepa, the chanchalata or the wavering mind, which is not at peace, which is not at attention or in focus. It keeps wavering. And this mind can be focused with the help of bhakti towards the Lord. And the third sadhana is the jnana, the ultimate knowledge, the self-knowledge, which takes care of the concealment, which takes away the concealment, the avarana of the ajnana, the ignorance, which is the mula, which is the root cause of all our afflictions, moha, shoka, everything. So, the main crux of the Bhagavad Gita is to tell us the Mahavakya Updesha Tattvamasi, and this it does with the compartmentalization into three parts. The first six Adhyayas, which we are going to talk today, are predominantly describing the Tvam Padartha. Tvam are the Jiva. When the Jiva sits in front of the Guru will say Tvam. So Tvam Padartha is a Tvam Pada Shodhana or Tvam Pada Viveka, is what we have to do ourselves as a Jiva. And this is Karma Pradhana, means the main sadhana for us, the main means to the goal is karma, karmayoga. The next six Adhyayas are more devoted towards the Tat Padartha Shodhana. So Tat Padartha in the Tattvamasi Mahavakya, Tat stands for Paramatma. And understanding the Paramatma, communion or communication or union with our Paramatma occurs by bhakti, worship. So this is the Bhakti Pradhana, the next six Adhyayas. And finally, the last six Adhyayas, starting from the 13th to the 18th Adhyaya, are the knowledge predominant. Asi means the Aikya Jnana, the Jnana Pradhana. So that gives us a lot of information about how we can assimilate this knowledge in our life and make our life more fulfilling. So the first six Adhyayas, the first Adhyaya starts with Arjuna's sorrow, the Arjuna Vishada Yoga. Second Adhyaya talks with the Sankhya Yoga, the main Jnana, Bhagavan is going to tell us. And then the Karma path, the Karma Yoga, and finally the Sthitapragna. The third Adhyaya is the Vistara. It's more description of the Karmayoga. What are the different attitudes of Karmayoga? Bhagavan tells us, makes us understand how we can convert our karma into Karmayoga. The fourth Adhyaya is more about Jnana Karma Sanyasa Yoga, means through knowledge how we can renounce the actions. And the fifth Adhyaya is the Karma Sanyasa Yoga, means renunciation of actions, Sanyasa Marga, how it is related to the Karma Yoga Marga. And the sixth Adhyaya is also called the Dhyana Yoga, meditation, a lot of things about meditation, but mostly more about Atma Sanyama Yoga, which is the self-restraint or self-control over our own self. So this is how the first six Adhyayas are the Tvam Pada for us. Very, very important to understand what Bhagavan has to tell us, what we need to do in our life. So let's start the first Adhyaya of Bhagavad Gita, which is also called the Arjuna Vishada Yoga. It is background of the teaching of all that is going to come, that is going to unfold, that is going to be revealed by none other than Lord Krishna. But this happens in the battlefield of Mahabharata. It's an allegory. Mahabharata goes on in our mind. There is constant battle between the dharma, adharma, the good values and the not so good values. All these keep fighting in ourselves, what I want to do and what I need to do. There is a constant friction between the two. And this is what this allegory is for the Mahabharata. It tells us the psychology of both the sides, each person, Duryodhana and Arjuna, who is the eligible person for this Atma Jnana. It is Arjuna who develops this attachment on seeing his relatives. It is not Duryodhana who is coming with a lot of confidence, overconfidence and fear. But Arjuna demonstrates the struggle in his mind which is going on, and this shows in our life also a lot of struggle goes on, and the mool or the root cause of all these struggles mostly is attachment, our moha, and that leads to shoka, sorrow, and this is what is the root cause of all the problems. And this is what Bhagavan is going to directly focus on in the second Adhyaya, how we can get rid of these by this Atma Jnana. So the first Adhyaya, the opening shloka of Bhagavad Gita, starts with Dhritarashtra's question. He asks Sanjaya, who is seeing the Mahabharata Yuddha, which is Sanjaya has the he has the Divya Chakshu, through which he is revealing what the entire story to Dhritarashtra. So Dhritarashtra asks Sanjaya, Dharma Kshetre Kurukshetre Samaveta Yuyutsavaha Mamakah Pandavaschaiva Kimakurvata Sanjaya. Oh Sanjaya, he asks, in Dharma Kshetre, where there is a Dharma Yuddha going on, Kurukshetra is the battlefield. All these Pandus and Kauravas have got together to fight this battle. Mamaka Pandavasche. Mamaka means my sons and Pandu sons. What are they doing, Sanjaya? They shows the Moha Buddhi of Dhritarashtra, which is the root cause of this entire battle. It shows the Bheda Buddhi, mine and theirs. This shows all the attachments of Dhritarashtra, who is blind, doesn't have his eyes, but he is also called Mohand, because he is blind with Moha and attachment also. So this is what is the opening statement of the Geetaji. And then Duryodhana talks about, he sees all the Pandavas, he talks about who are the Pandava warriors, he talks about his Kaurava warriors, and finally he says that a lot of people are giving up their life for me. He shows his overconfidence. He compares the two armies out of fear also, and then he says that becomes overconfident, saying that our army is protected by Bhishma, and that's why it is very, very aparyaptam. It is it is unlimited, whereas the opposite warriors are protected by Bhima, and that's why they are paryaptam, they are limited. He says, shows his overconfidence, shows his inner fear, and then the war starts. There is blowing of conches on both the sides, starting with Bhishma Pitama, then Shri Krishna, all the Pandavas, Arjuna, and then there are all the musical instruments which are giving a loud noise, suggesting that the war of Mahabharata has started. Then in the 20th shloka, Arjuna gets prepared for the war. He lifts his arrow, which is called the Gandeva. It is one of the best bow and arrows that anyone can have. And then he tells Krishna that I want to see my opponents. I want to see who I'm going to fight with. He's prepared for the war. He tells Krishna, who is the charioteer of Arjuna, that Senayo Ubayor Madhye Ratham Stapaya Mechyuta. Hey Achyuta, take my chariot to the center of the battlefield. I want to see with whom I'm going to fight this war. So Krishna takes the chariot to the center, and then he steadies there and tells Arjuna, Pashya Kuru. You see all these Kurus, he says. It doesn't say see your opponents. He says see your Kauravas and see in the opposite side. The Arjuna does not see the warriors in the opposite side. He sees his own relatives. And then after seeing his own relatives, he develops moha, attachment. And then he says, Drashtvevam Swajanam Krishna Yutsam Samupastitam. After seeing my relatives, oh Krishna, I'm not feeling comfortable, he says. And then he describes this condition very nice, very clearly. Siddhanti mama gatrani, my mouth is getting very dry, my body is getting trembling, my Gandiv Sansrate, it is coming down, and my hands are getting very dry, they're burning, and my mind is roaming around. I don't know what to do. I'm in a very difficult situation. And then Arjuna starts talking about the opposite result of the war. Now he doesn't want to fight the war because he feels that how can he fight with his Bhishma Pitama, who is like fatherly figure to him, Dronacharya, who has been his teacher, guru. How he can fight with all his cousins, all his mama, and all these people who cannot. And then he develops vairagya, dispassion. And this vairagya is out of moha. It is not the true vairagya which comes out of viveka, but this vairagya is out of moha. He does not want to fight this battle. He says there is no point fighting this battle for wealth, for kingdom. There is no point living life also after killing my own near and dear ones, he says. And he sees all his relatives in the opponent and says, I don't want to fight this battle. Gives a lot of reasons for not fighting this battle. He tells Krishna that this is adharma. He says that this can cause kulakshaya. It can cause a lot of varna sankara and naraka gati. All these he gives a lot of reasons, arguments for not fighting this battle, and that's how he feels finally that it's better Duryodhana and the other Kauravas kill him rather than he kills the others. He finally decides against the war, sits down in the backside of the chariot. Final shloka of the first Adhyaya, Eva Muktva Arjuna Sankhye Athopasta Upavishata Visrujya Sasharam Chapam Shoka Sangvigna Manasaha. And that is the end of the first Adhyaya, Arjuna Vishada Yoga. So let us now start the second Adhyaya, which is also called the Sankhya Yoga. Sankhya means the knowledge. It starts with Sanjaya, who describes Arjuna's condition, who is engulfed with delusion and with a lot of Ashrupurna Kulekshanam, tears in his eyes, engrossed in sorrow. Bhagavan Madhusudana is going to tell him something. So Bhagavana Uvacha Bhagavana Krishna starts his first opening statement. He says, Oh Arjuna, Kutastva Kashmalamidam Vishame Samupastitam. How can you manage to get this Kashmala impurity in this battlefield at this time? Anarya Justam, it does not befit you as an Aryan, a Kshatriya. Aswargyam, it is not going to give you heaven. Akirtim, it is not going to give you good reputation. Arjuna, there is no point doing this. Says, and then he uses harsh words on Arjuna. He says, Klaibhyam masma gamak partha naitatva upapadyate. He says, don't be unmanly. This cowardly attitude does not befit you. Shudram dauradaya daurbalyam tattvotishta parantapa. Get up. He orders Arjuna that leave all these attitudes. Let go of your weak-minded emotions. Get up and prepare for the war. But Arjuna still he gives his justifications. He says, Guru Nahatva Namaha. I cannot fight with this Gurudev. And finally he accepts what is his condition. He says, Karpanya dosho pahata swabhava pruchami tvam dharma sammuda cheta. I am engulfed with this cowardly attitude and I am asking you, I am very confused. He says, Yachreyasya nishchitam brohitanme. You tell me one thing that is definitely beneficial for me. Shishyasteham shadimam tvam prapannam. He says, I am accept to be your disciple. Shadimam, you govern me, you teach me, you give me your updesha, and tvam prapannam, I surrender to you. And that itself shows that if we are confused, we are in a difficulty, we should surrender to the Lord. Only then we can get some enlightenment or understanding which can help us in our life. And in the 11th shloka of the second Adhyaya, Bhagavan Shri Krishna starts with his teaching of the Atma Jnana, his updesha, which is ultimate updesha for all the Jiva. He says, Ashocyananva shochastvam pragnavadanshcha bhashase. You are feeling sad, Arjuna, for what is not worth feeling sad for. Gatasuna gatasunshcha nanu shochanti pandita. For those who have left us, those who have already died, agatasunascha. And those who are already still with us, those who are alive, nanu shochanti pandita. Wise people do not feel sorrow. They don't suffer for this. They don't feel miserable. And in God's view, there is no reason to feel sorrow about. He says even death, one should not feel sorrow about in death also. And why? He gives the reasons. Next shloka, he says, Atma Tattva, which is Sat, which is Nitya. We are all eternal, he says. Sarve Vayamatah Param. All of us will be there always. We are always there. It's never a time that we, these kings, you, me, others, nobody was there. We all are there all the time. And then he talks about the body, the anatma. He says, Dehi nosmin yatha dehe kaumaram yavanam jara. The body undergoes many changes, many vikara from from childhood, adulthood, old age, and then says tatha dehantara prapti. And similarly, it changes from one body to the other. This dehi, this atma, it changes. Dhirastatranam. The wise man do not get deluded by this kind of understanding. And then Arjuna may have felt that you are talking about life, death, atma, but what about my life? I'm seeing all these problems. What should I do? Bhagavan says, Matra sparshastu kaunteya shitoshna sukha dukkhadaha. This dualities of life, when sense organ comes in contact with objects, there will definitely be the experience of the dualities of life. Shitoshna sukha dukkhadaha, the pleasure, pain, shita, ushna, all these are dualities which we have to. Bhagavan said, Agama paino nityam. They are all anitya, they are all transient, they come and go. Stan titikshasva bharata. So you endure them, O Arjuna. There is no other way. Titiksha means sahanshilta. You have to endure all these dualities of your life. They are part of life. Don't get too worried about them. And then Bhagavan says, one who is able to endure these dualities of life and remain samatva, equanimous, is the person who is eligible for atma jnana, freedom or moksha. It says, yamhina vyatayante te purusham purusharshava. These dualities don't affect the wise men, they remain equanimous, and those are the people who are eligible for atma jnana, somu tattvaya kalpate, and moksha. And then again he talks about antavanta ime deha. All these bodies are having anitya, they are coming and going, they belong to atma tattva, which is always there, which is indestructible. Anashino aprameyasya, which is this atma tattva, cannot be understood by any evidence. He says, tatsmat yuddhasva bharata. That's why you should fight this battle. And then it talks about the Atma Tattva, which is eternal, which is Nitya. He says, Na jayate mriyate va kadachita nayam bhutva bhavita va na bhuyaha. This Atma is never born, it never dies, it is neither created nor comes into existence. It is always there, it is Nitya. Ajo Nitya shashvato yam purano na hanyate hanyamane sharire. It is unborn, it is eternal, it remains the same, it is always like it was before. And even when the body is killed, this Atma Tattva is never killed. Bhagavan says it is eternal. And what happens to the body? The death is described, and what is the vision of the Lord about the death of the body? He says, Vasansi jiranani yatha vihaya navani grahanati naroparani. It's a very well-known shloka of Geetaji. Just like a person sheds off his old clothes when they become old and wears new clothes, tatha sharirani vihaya jiranani anyani sanyati navani dehi. Similarly, Jivatma leaves the old body whenever it becomes old, and then it enters into a new body. In the God's vision, death is nothing but changing old clothes and wearing new clothes. And then it describes how Atma Tattva, in 3 shlokas, it describes Atma Tattva is indestructible. Nainam chindanti shastrani, nainam dahati pavakaha, na chainam kledayantyapo, na shoshayati marutha. Atma cannot be destroyed by weapons, cannot be burned by fire, cannot be soaked by water, cannot be dried by winds. And then with this, the teaching based on the belief of the Arjuna, the Jiva, Bhagavan starts, Atha chainam nitya jatam. Even if you believe that Atma is born, it dies, even then he says there is no reason to feel miserable. Arjuna, don't feel sorrow for something that is unavoidable. Jatasya dhruvam mrityu dhruvam janmam mrutasya cha. One that is born is destined to die. One that dies is sure to be reborn. That's why for something that cannot be avoided, which is unavoidable, Arjuna, you should not feel sorrow about. He gives so many reasons to Arjuna not to feel sorrow about. Then he says, something that is transient, you don't feel sorrow about it. Avyaktadini bhutani vyaktamadhyani bharata. All beings are unseen before death. In between they are seen, and after death, avyakta nidanani eva. They are not seen after death. And that's why, what is the reason to feel sorrow about it? He says, and then he describes Atma Tattva. It is like a wonderment. He says, Ashcharyavat paschati kashtidena. Ashcharyavat vadati tathaiva chanya. Ashcharyavat chaina manya shrunoti. Shutvapienam vedana chaiva kashchita. He says, this Atma Tattva is like, people listen to it, they describe it with a wonderment. Some people even talk about it, but some don't understand it. That is also wonderment. Everything is a wonder. He says, if we can see it that way, how it is there all the time, it is always there, and still we cannot see it. Everything is a wonder. And then Bhagavan is now changing the topic here. Esha te bhita sankhye buddhir yoge tvimam shudu. He's showing the other path. He said, so far I talked about the knowledge path, but now you listen about the path of actions, the karma yoga. Now the topic is being changed. If you do your actions with this attitude of karma yoga, karma bandham prahasyasi, you will be liberated from the bondage of karma. And it's good for us to learn this technique, this art, this attitude Bhagavan is describing. Bhagavan says atma is indestructible, and with this he ends dehi nityam avadyoyam dehe sarvasya bharata, and there is no reason for you to grieve, Arjuna. With this he ends the knowledge part and shows the final goal. Nistray gunyo bhava Arjuna, traigunya vishaya veda. This Veda and this world is consisting of the three gunas, but you have to rise above the three gunas. It's a call for transcendence for all of us, Jiva. And this is the highest goal, but till that goal is reached, we have to rise above the dualities of life. Nirdvandvo bhava, he says. Nitya sattvasto bhava. Be in the sattva guna, the daivi sampatti. Niryoga kshema bhava. Be free from the stress of achieving something and protecting your achievements. Bhagavan says, Yoga kshema bhavamyoham. He is telling in the 11th Adhyaya that I am the one who takes care of all these. You don't worry. Atmavan bhava. Take care of your own self. Be proactive, be courageous, patient, persistent, and enthusiastic. With this, you have to go to Niryoga Kshema, Nityasattvasto, Nirdvandvo, and then finally Nitstai Grunyo Bhavarjuna. So with this, Bhagavan is now describing our duties. Swadharmamapi chaveksha. Our duty is our best karma, and that is what, according to dharma, we should do our duties. Dharmadhi yuddha shreyonta kshatriya sena vidyate. For a warrior kshatriya, there is no better duty than fighting a righteous battle. Bhagavan is giving a dharma, jnana. What is dharma? What is adharma? What is kartavya? What is akartavya? What is to be done? What is your duty, Arjuna? You should fight the war. And then he describes the 4 pillars of Karmayoga in the 47th shloka of the 2nd Adhyaya. Karmanyeva adhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phala heturbuhu mate sangostva karmani. The 4 pillars of Karmayoga. Karmani eva adhikarate, meaning our choice is only in action. We have a right adhikar only for action. That is our territory. Karma is our territory. That is our free will area where we can do our best. We do whatever we want to do according to our free will. Ma phaleshu kadachana, not in the results of action. Our territory is not what will happen when we do the karma. That is the territory of the destiny. You can call it territory of the God. You can call it territory of the karma phala principle. You could call it anything. Daivam, as Bhagavan calls it. But it is not in our territory. We should not be very, rigid about what I should get out of what I'm doing. We should focus more on our karmas. Bhagavan is trying to tell us, Ma karma phala heturbuhu. Do your actions with the right understanding so that you don't create more karma, does not bind you. And mate sangostva karmani. Don't be lazy. Akarma me tera sanga pabina ho. Don't be inactive. Don't run away from your actions, your duties out of fear. So these are the 4 pillars of Karma Yoga. Bhagavan is telling us that do your actions well. Don't get attached to your results of the action. Do your actions in such a way with the Karma Yoga attitude that it does not bind you, and don't be lazy, inactive, or be or give up your karmas by fear. This is what Bhagavan is trying to tell us. Next shloka, Bhagavan says, Samatvam Yoga Uchyate. Samatva is Karma Yoga, being equanimous in the results of the action, not getting attached to the results of action, being equipoised in success and failure, taking both this in the same stride. Bhagavan says that itself is Karma Yoga, Samatva. And then Bhagavan says, Yoga Karma Sukaushalam, doing the skilled action, cleverly doing our actions is Karma Yoga. Use our own Buddhi Yukto Jahatiya, use your intellect. Do not create Sukruta Dushkrute, Papa Punya, and Tasmat Yogaya Yuchas. Perform your actions accordingly, cleverly, so that this is what is Karma Yoga. And doing this Karma Yoga, where will you reach? Bhagavan is showing the goal, the final goal for us. With this Karma Yoga attitude, if you keep doing with your intellect, living the attachments with the fruits of the action, and with self-restraint, one is Padam Gacchanta Namayam. One is liberated from the cycle of birth and death and achieves ultimate salvation, the end of all sufferings, the end of all pain, miseries, everything. Moksha is where we will reach, Bhagavan says. And this journey from Karma Yoga to self-knowledge, Bhagavan is describing in 2 shlokas. Yadate moha kalilam. Moha, kalila. Kalila means kichad, the dirt of moha. We have to buddhi vyati tarishati. Tada gantasi nirvedam. This is where we get the vairagya. And prashrutavasya shutasya cha shruti pratipannate. Shravana, manana and nididhyasana are very important tools for us for jnana sadhana. Only then we can reach to what is called as the Sthitapragna. So the last 18 shlokas of the second Adhyaya is about the Sthitapragna Darshana. It's a beautiful description of the person who is deeply rooted in wisdom. How does he live his life? Paripurna person who is ultimate knowledge, the fullness. And this is the internal attitude due to a right understanding, complete acceptance of the situation, all the situations of life, does not have any complaints, is completely at peace all the time. For seekers like us, this shows like lampposts. These are the goals for us, where we should reach. This is useful for us to introspect, and we should show our milestones in our spiritual journey. So it starts with Arjuna's question, Sthitapragna se ka bhasha. He asks 4 questions. Ka bhasha, Sthitapragna, how does he, what is his language? How does he, what are his attributes, his lakshana? Kim prabhasheta, how does he speak? What is his response? How does he sit? What is his mind control? And how does he walk? What is his conduct? And Bhagavan says, so Bhagavan starts answering the 4 questions of Arjuna. The first question he answers when he says, Prajahati yada kama. When all the desires that appear in our mind are given up, Atmanyeva Atmanatushta, that Sthitapragna person is happy in his own self, and that is the person who is a Sthitapragna. His second question, Bhagavan answers, what is his Kim Prabhasheta? What is the response? Bhagavan says he is in Samatva, Dukkeshvanu Degmamana, does not get agitated in grief or sorrow. Sukheshu Vigata Spruha, there is no longing for happiness or joy. Raaga Bhaya Krodha, is free from attachment, fear and anger. Sthita Dhirmini Ruchyate, he is the person who is wise, Sthita Pragna. And then how Kimasita, how is his mind? How does his Indriya and mind work? Yada Samharate Chayam. This Bhagavan gives an example of turtle, Kurma, and shows how Indriya Sanyam can be established. He says, just as a turtle withdraws all its limbs into its shell, Indriyan Indriyarthebhya tasya pragna pratishtita. Sthita Pragna withdraws all his sense organs from the sense objects, and then only he attains this firm wisdom. And then finally Bhagavan is saying that there is a rasa which keeps lingering behind after all the desires are withdrawn. He says, Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehina rasavarjam rasopyasya param drashtva nivartate. And this rasa, the objects are renounced, senses don't feed on these objects, but the desire still remains. And this is only relieved by knowing the Ishvara, the Paramatma, param drashtva nivartate. Only by relieving this we can all these rasas. And the final question, Kim Brajet, what is his conduct? Raaga dvesha vyukta istu, he is free from strong likes, dislikes. And this is how when the sense interacts with the object, with sense and mind under control, atma vashya videya atma prasadam adhigacchati, and he achieves tranquility, peace of his mind, prasad. And then finally the Bhagavan is talking about the indriya, how they are powerful, how powerful are these sense organs, the Gnanendriya and the Karmendriya, they are so chanchala. Bhagavan is saying, seekers, ayatato yapi kaunteya purushasya vipaschita indriyani pramathini, they are so powerful that haranti prasapamana, they take away the mind by force. And that's why Bhagavan talks about indriya sanyam, tani sarvani sanyamya yukta asita matpara, control all your sense organs. Only people who have senses under control, tasya pragna pratishtita, their knowledge can become firm. And then Bhagavan describes a beautiful 2 shloka, the 8 steps to ruin. Dhyayato vishayan punsa, when the person keeps thinking about the objects that will give me happiness, sangaste shupajayate, he gets attracted or gets attached to these objects. Sangat sanjayate kamaha, and this creates desire to get this or achieve these objects. Kamat krodho vijayate, if the desires are not fulfilled, obviously the anger comes. So far it is reversible process. But after that, if we are not careful, krodhat bhavati sammoha, anger turns into delusion. We are very keen, we just want it at any cost. Sammoha smriti vibhramaha. Then with this sammoha, with this delusion, the smriti of all that we have learned, what we know, what is good for us, everything is lost. Smriti branchad buddhi nasho, when the intellect is destroyed. And with this buddhi nashat, buddhi is our main ornament of our human beings. Buddhi nashat pranashyati, then we cease to be a person, we become inhuman, and we behave in an inhuman, violent manner. And this destruction is irreversible. These are the 8 steps to ruin that Bhagavan is showing us. And that's why he says, one person who is devoid of his raaga dvesha is a wise person, should not have too much of affection. When it encounters pleasant or unpleasant thing, does not rejoice nor hate. And this is the person whose pragna is pratishtita. Indriyanam hi charatam, power of the senses. Again, it describes senses keep roaming here and there. Mind also follows the senses and it kidnaps. Tadasya harati pragnam vayurnam vimamasi. It kidnaps the intellect by force, just like the wind takes away the boat in a strong wind. the boat is blown into the waters. Similarly, we have to be aware of our senses and its movement. And then finally, the two shlokas of the second Adhyaya, Bhagavan talks about the final goal. The first goal, he says, Vihaya Kamanya Sarvan. All binding desires are left. Person Sarvan Pumansh Charati Nispruha. This person lives without any longing. Nirmamaha. He is without any attachment. Nirahankara. Without ego or pride. Sashanti Mudikachati. Attains the eternal bliss. And then the final goal, Param Lakshya, it says, Esha Brahmistiti Partha. This Brahma Swarup, this Brahmistiti, Nainam Prapya Vimurute. There is no going back. Sitva Samanta Kalepi. Even if you achieve this state before the end of the life, Brahma Nirvana Mruchati. Bhagavan says we attain the liberation or moksha, salvation. And with this we come to the end of the second Adhyaya of Sri Geetaji. Let us start now the third Adhyaya, which is the Karmayoga Adhyaya. Bhagavan talks in details about how we can convert our karma into Karmayoga. This is the first step in our spiritual journey, and the main purpose of doing Karmayoga is to achieve the purity of our inner mind. So karma, everybody does karma actions, but Karmayoga is done only by some. And this attitude is something that we need to learn, because Karmayoga is the main tool for upliftment of our own self. Karma leads to bondage, whereas Karma Yoga leads to freedom. So it is only with our karma that we have to start this journey and convert our karma into Karma Yoga. So let us understand what Bhagavan talks about, what according to Bhagavan is Karma Yoga. Starts with Arjuna's question. He is asking whether karma is better or Jnana is better, because Bhagavan described Sthitapragna in the finals of the Jnana Avastha. And now he's telling Arjuna that you fight this war. So he's confused whether to go for karma or whether to go for Jnana. And that's why he says, if you think that Jnana is superior, knowledge is superior, then why do you force me into fighting this fierce battle? He's telling Krishna, and you're confusing me. I pray to you, Tadekam Vadanishitya, that tell me one thing, one clear message which can be Kalyankari Shreyo Hamapnyan, which can be highest benefit, Shreya or Kalyana for me. And Bhagavan answers and shows him two paths. He says, Lokesmin Dvida Nishtha. There are two Nishtha, Pura Prokta, which I have already said through the ancient times. He says, Sankhya Yogena Gnana Yogena Sankhyanam. He says, for the knowledge seekers, it is the path of knowledge, the Gnana Yoga. Karma Yogena Yoginam, for the action-oriented people, there is a path of action, the Karma Yoga. So Gnana and the Karma, these are the two paths Bhagavan describes. Essentially in our scriptures, the two life approaches, the Pravrutti Lakshana Dharma and Nivrutti Lakshana Dharma have been described very clearly. Pravrutti is the householders, the Karma Yoga, how we can purify and then attain the ultimate reality of the life. And Nivrutti is the Sannyasa mark, when renunciates, they undergo this Jnana Yoga and then ultimately they reach the ultimate goal. So Bhagavan is saying no to renouncing our actions. He says, Na karmana manaramba nishkaram purushoshnute. By renouncing actions, karma tyaga, person cannot ever achieve moksha, and only by renouncing the world or sannyasa, one cannot achieve moksha. And Bhagavan says it's impossible for us to remain without action even for a moment. Nahi kaschit kshanam api jatu tishtatya karma kruta. Without doubt, without performing actions, no person can survive even for a moment. Karyate yavasha karma sarva prakriti jayar guna. These three gunas of prakriti will force us into actions. That's why Bhagavan says, don't denounce action. You must continue action, but how we should continue action, that is important. He denounces senseless action in the next sloka. He says, one who restrains one's sense organs in the mind and continues thinking about the objects is the biggest fool, is a hypocrite. Somebody who keeps on doing, thinking about the objects, and then he says, no, I don't want to work, he's lazy, then this is a hypocrite. But he praises the person who has a restraint over his senses, Indriya Sanyama, and then continues doing Karma Yoga with unattached actions, without any attachment to the fruits of the actions. This person, Bhagavan says, Karma Yogam Asakta Sa Vishishyate, is a unique person, Karmendriyai. Then Bhagavan is describing the four attitudes of Karma Yoga, starting with the Kartavya Karma, the duty. Second, the Yagna Karma, the Yagna Buddhi. Third is the Prasada Buddhi, or the acceptance. And fourth is the cosmic cycle, Srushti Chakra. So let us see what he is trying to tell us. So he describes first the Kartavya Karma, Niyatam Kuru Karmatvam. Do your karma as it is prescribed for you as your duty by the scriptures, what you need to do. Karma Jayo Ya Karmanaha. Action is superior to inaction. Don't be lazy. Sharira Yatra Pichate Prasiddheda Karmanaha. Even for our journey of life, we have to do some karmas. It says, Yagna Buddhi describes Yagnarthat Karmano Yatra Lokoyam Karma Bandhanaha. Actions which are done without the Yagna Buddhi, they cause bondage. So do your actions according to the attitude of surrender to the Lord. Tadartham Karma Kaunteya Mukta Sangha Samachara. Do your karma in the best possible way without getting attached to the results of the action. The third attitude Bhagavan shows is a Prasada Buddhi, acceptance. Yagna Shishta Sina Santo Muchante Sarvakil Vishayi. Whatever remains after Yagna, whoever consumes is relieved of all the sins. Bunjate te togam papa. Those sinful people who just cook for themselves, those who are selfish, they only think about themselves, they create only sins for themselves. The fourth attitude Bhagavan talks about is the cosmic cycle, the Srushti Chakra. He talks about Annat Bhavanti Bhutani. All beings are created from food. Parjanya Danna Sambhavaha. Food is produced by the rains. Yagnat Bhavati Parjanyo. Rain is produced by Yagna. Yagna Karma Samudbhava. Yagna is done by the karmas. Bhagavan is showing us that how actions lead to Yagna, Yagnas lead to rain, rain leads to food, food leads to the being. And that's why all this, he says, Srushti Chakra, Evam Pravartitam Chakra, this is how it is going on, this cosmic cycle. But Aghayurindriya Arama, who does not contribute to this cosmic circle, just wants to grab everything out of it, does not want to give anything, Mogam Sajivati, is leading a useless life, Bhagavan says. And till what time do we have to continue this Karmayoga? Bhagavan is showing us three goals. He's saying Atmarati, one who enjoys in his own body, Atmatruptaha, who is contented, his mind, in his own mind, all the desires are contented, Atmani eva santushtaha, satisfied in his own self. For that person, there is no duty for any Karmayoga to be done. And wise does not have this kind of any motive in action or inaction. Naivatasya krutenartho na krutene akashchana. They don't have any purpose of doing or not doing. They just keep living in this world without selflessly. Tasmad asakta satatam. That's why do your actions without getting attached. Bhagavan says, do your kartavya karma in the best possible manner. Asakto yacharan karma. Do your actions without attachment. Then only paramapnoti purushaha. You will attain the highest goal of our life. Arjuna must be confused. How is it possible by doing karma I can attain the highest goal of life? Bhagavan is giving him examples. Here in the 20th shloka, he gives him example of Janaka. How he, King Janaka and others, they just kept on doing their karma through the best possible way. They were the king, they used to look after their subjects, and they reached their final goal. And even if you see welfare of the people at large, it's the best interest for you to do karma. Yadyada charati shreshta tattad devetaro janaha. People follow great people. All the normal, ordinary people follow examples of great people, most respected people. And that's why, even for that matter, people like you and me have to be in the karma. We cannot leave our karma. And how do we have to do the karma? Bhagavan is saying that from outside, there should not be a difference between the wise and unwise when they are doing the karma. They both are doing it with the same passion, the same involvement, the same carefulness, and the same nitty-gritty awareness. They are doing the karma, and we should do it in that way. If there is aviveka, if they don't have, there is no discriminative intellect, all these actions, Bhagavan says, pratute kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvasha, they are performed by the three gunas of the nature. And then ahankara vibhudatma, the person who is having ahankara, that I am the doer, kartahamiti manyate, thinks that I am the doer, and which only this ahankara is the root cause of ourselves. And what is the understanding of the wise man? The tattvavitta, tattvavittu mahabaho, guna karma vibhaga. This is the divisions of the guna and the karma. Guna guneshu vartanta iti matvana sachate. I am away. These are the gunas. They indulge in the gunas. Senses indulge in the objects. That I am quite away from this. I am unattached. I am akarta. I am atma swarupa. And my atma swarupa does not get attached to this guna and guna. This is the understanding of the wise man. And Bhagavan is saying, telling us the teaching, the goal of Nishkam Karma Yoga. Surrender all your actions to me. Mai sarvani sam karmani sanyasa adhyatma chetasa nirashi nirmamo bhutva. Let go of all your asha, expectations, results of action. Nirmamo bhutva. Let go of your attachments. Yuddha swabhigata jvara. And do your duty. Here, Yuddha is the duty of Arjuna without any anger or any problems. Indriyasya arte. Here, Bhagavan is now talking about these desires. What is the problem? The main problem is the raaga dvesha. And this raaga dvesha, how they are firmly rooted. And Bhagavan says, Tayorna vashamagache. Don't get under their influence or their spell. Tauhyasya paripantino. They are your biggest obstacle on the path. We must understand. That's why Bhagavan says, Shreyan swadharmo vigunaha. Do your duty to the best possible way. It is better to do our duty than to look at others' duty. Even if our duty is, some inferior, it is better than doing others' duty. Paradharmo bhayavaha. And Arjuna is asking Bhagwan that I probably know all this, that this is good, this is not so good, but still, what is it that forces a person to do a sin? And this is our own experience. We know what to do, but we are not able to do that. And what is that? And Bhagwan is asking, Athakena prayuktoyam papam charati purusha. What impels the person to do this kind of papa against his own wish? Anichannapi varshneya, without it, by force, is drawn into this baladiva niyojitaha, committing the sin. And Bhagavan is answering, says, Kama esha, krodha esha, rajo guna samudvabha. Desires and the angers are the two root causes of all the sins. He says they are mahashano, they keep coming, they eat a lot, mahapapma, they cause great sins. Vidyena mihavairinam, know that these are your two big enemies, the desires and the anger, kama, krodha. And how this atma jnana is concealed by these desires, Bhagavan is giving three examples. As a smoke conceals the fire, dhumena priyate bandhi, yatha darsho malena cha. The dirt conceals the image in the mirror, yatholbena vrato garbhaha. As the womb conceals a fetus, similarly, this desires conceal the atma jnana, does not allow us to see the reality. And where is the home of these desires? Bhagavan is describing indriyani mano buddhihi. These desires work through all these indriya, mana, buddhi, and there they stay and they dilute the moha, they create moha, dilute the mind, and conceal the knowledge of the jiva, the atma. Atma jnana is concealed here. And that's why Bhagavan is telling us indriya sanyama is the first step to start our journey. Tasmatvam indriyanyadav niyamya bharatarshava papmanam prajahiyenam jnana vijnana nashanam. Destroy all this papa and then achieve this jnana vijnana. And he shows a hierarchy how indriyani paranya, who senses are superior to the body, the objects, but the mind is superior to the senses, the intellect is superior to the mind. And what is above this intellect is our consciousness, our awareness, our atma tattva, our atma. And with this final shloka of the third Adhyaya, Bhagavan says, Evam buddhe param buddhva. By this consciousness, by this understanding of the atma, this highest knowledge, you control your param buddhva, sansatta bhyatmamatmana, jahi shatrum mahabaho kamarupam durasadam. Control your mind, intellect, and conquer your enemy. Let go of all these desires. With this final understanding, by self-knowledge, you can perish your ignorance. With this, we come to the end of the third Adhyaya, the Karmayoga. The different attitudes of Karmayoga, to summarize, Bhagavan has described first is the dharma, swadharma, kartavya karma, surrender, karam, ishwara arpana bhavana, acceptance of the karma phala, the svikara buddhi or the prasada buddhi, and the more acceptance, more is the peace of mind. Make use of karma itself to liberate from karma, and do our actions, be prepared for any results, because that is not in our hands. And these are all the attitudes of Karmayoga that Bhagavan describes. Coming to the fourth Adhyaya of Sri Bhagavad Gita, fourth Adhyaya is called the Jnana Karma Sanyasa Yoga. The crux of the understanding of the fourth Adhyaya is that karma, guna guneshu vartanta. Bhagavan has already said it happens in the anatma, in the body-mind complex. Whereas Atma is akarta by Swarupa, there is no karma in the Atma. So with this understanding, we have to renounce our karma by understanding this knowledge, the final jnana. The fourth Adhyaya starts with Bhagavan starts describing the Vidya Parampara, the knowledge tradition. He says this starts with himself, eternal tradition. And he says, I gave this knowledge to the son, and son passed on this to Manu, the first human, and then this was given to his son, King Ishwaku. And this is how the knowledge tradition starts. And he says, this is ancient wisdom. Even before me, a lot of people have told about this. But because you are my bhaktosi me sakha cheti, you are my devotee and also my friend, this profound secret which remains hidden, I'm going to tell you again. He says, Arjuna Uvacha. Arjuna puts up a very beautiful, innocent question. He says, I'm astonished. How is it possible that aparam bhavato janma, you have been born recently, param janma vivasvata, son was born so many thousands of years ago. How can I understand kathametat vijaniyam tamadav proktavaniti, that you only in the beginning of the creation gave this knowledge to son? In response to this, Bhagavan answers and he shows his Ishwaratva. He shows what is the true nature of the Lord. He says, Bahuni me vatitani janmani tava charjuna. Hey Arjun, I and you both have taken many births. Tanya ham veda sarvani. All this aham veda, I know all these births. Natvam vekta parantapa, but you don't know, Arjuna. You don't know all these births. You don't know what is happened in your previous birth. I know everything. I'm Sarvagna. I'm the all-knower. You are Jiva. You are limited. You are Alpagna. You have a limited knowledge. This is the understanding that we should have. Bhagavan is showing us his original form of the Lord and his incarnate form. He says, Ajopi sanna atma. Even though I am unborn, I am Bhutanam Ishwaropi sanna. I am the Lord of all the beings. Prakrutim Swamadhishtaya. I take the nature under my control, the Prakriti, Maya, Sambhavatmaya, Maya. I manifest with my own powers of the Maya Shakti. And when does he incarnate? Bhagavan is showing Yada Yada Hi Dharmasya Glanir Bhavati Bharata Abhyuthanam Adharmasya Jadatmanam Sujamyam. He says, whenever there is decay of dharma and rise of adharma, I manifest myself. And then says, Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya chadushkrutam dharma sansthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. Bhagavan is saying that to protect the dharmi, sadhu purusha, to destroy the adharmi, and to re-establish dharma, I incarnate whenever needed. I sambhavami yuge yuge. Doesn't mean that in one yuga he takes only one incarnation or avatar, but whenever he is needed, he will come on this earth. Janma karma cha me divyam yevam yovetti tattvata. Bhagavan says, who understands my incarnation and in the tattvic way, means I'm unborn but still I incarnate. If somebody understands in this way, tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti mameti sorjuna. Those people also, they do not get rebirth, they attain moksha, they come join me. Bhagavan is then describing the spiritual journey. He says how karmayoga, vitaraga, bhayo krodha, one who has conquered these attachments, fear, anger, developed antakarana shuddhi. Manmaya, who has become one with me, dhya nishta. Mamupashrita, one who has surrendered to me, bahavo gnana tapasa. Those people who have become pious in the fire of knowledge, they are the people who attain me, my real self. And Bhagavan in the next shloka tells us why so many people don't go for gnana, moksha, why most of the people are all attached in karma, because the results of the actions, the karmas are achieved very quickly. Say Shipram hi manushe loke siddhir bhavati karmaja. And that's why most of the people don't want to go into Jnana Yoga. Bhagavan is then describing the Chatur Varanya Maya Srushtam, the Chatur Varna, the four Varnas, the Vedic Vyavastha, the Dharma, which is there in the Vedas. Bhagavan is describing here that Guna Karma Vibhagasha. These are developed because of the Gunas, three Gunas, Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, and the Karmas, according to the duties. But this was never done according to birth, because it was always done according to Guna and Karma. Bhagavan says, Tasya kartaram apiman, even though I am the creator of these vyavastha, vidya kartaram apyayam. You consider me as eternal, non-creator. I am the akarta swarupa, the non-doer. This is what we need to understand. And Bhagavan says, even though I do all these things, nothing binds me. There is no action that binds me, because Bhagavan is paripurna, sarvagna, is full of knowledge. Namam karmani limpanti name karma phale spruha. My actions don't bind me. I have no attachment to the fruits of action. In this way, one who knows me clearly as a karta abhokta swarup, Bhagavan says it does not get bound by the actions. And then Bhagavan talks about how it is difficult to understand the karma gati. Karma phala gati is quite difficult to understand. He says karmano api bodhavyam. Actions is worth knowing. Bodhavyam cha vikarana. Forbidden action, something which should not do, nishiddha karma, is also worth knowing. Actionlessness, akarmanascha bodhavyam. Actionlessness, what should not be done, is also worth doing. Bhagavan says, because the path of karma gahana karmano gati, the path of karma is very deep, it is very difficult to understand. And then Bhagavan is describing the pravrutti marga, gnani, one who renounces the fruits of action, tat tyaktva karma phala sangam, nitya trubdo nirashaya. He is always satisfied, he is not dependent on anything for happiness, and that person does not really do anything. And then Bhagavan describes the Nivrutti Marga Jnani, who is equipoised, who is not bound by anything. Yadruchala Vasantushto. Whatever comes to him, he accepts it as God's will. Twandva Tito Vimatsara, rises above the dualities, remains Samatva, is never jealous, same in success, failure. That person, Krutva Napina Nibadyate, is not bound to actions. Then Bhagavan is describing the 12 yagnas, the entire yagna prakarana of the 4th Adhyaya. Bhagavan is describing yagnas were done in the Vedic Vyavastha for Tyaga and for selflessness. The first yagna that Bhagavan is describing is the Brahma yagna, which is done by to see oneness in all, Brahma Buddhi everywhere. Brahmarpanam Brahmahavi Brahmagno Brahmanahutam Brahmahevatena Gantavyam Brahma Karma Samadhina. Everything that is offered, what is one who gives offering, the fruits that are offered, the materials, everything is Brahma. With this Brahma Buddhi, one sees everything as Brahma. Then Bhagavan is talking about that all these restraints, sanyama, sense control, is also Yagna. And he describes this Sanyam, Indriya Sanyam Yagna. And then he describes the other 5 yagnas, the Dravya Yagna, Tapa Yagna, Yoga Yagna, Swadhyaya Yagna, and the Jnana Yagna. And then finally describes Shreyan Dravyamayat Yagnat Jnana Yagna Parantapas Sarvam Karma Kilam Pata Jnane Parisamaptate. He says out of all the yagnas, the Jnana Yagna is the best. The knowledge yagna, Bhagavan always praises. It's the best step, it's the ultimate and the final step to Jnana and Moksha. All the other steps, Karma, Bhakti and everything, Dhyana, meditation, Raja Vidya, everything else is complementary, Sahayak Sadhana. The Sakshat Sadhana is the Jnana for Moksha. And then how this knowledge can be understood, Bhagavan says, Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. This knowledge you can only know by pranipatena, by going down to the Guru, pariprashnena, by asking questions to the Guru, sevaya, by service to the Guru. And out of joy, this Guru will give you the self-knowledge, and that Guru also is Gnaninaha, who is knowledgeable, and Tattva Darshinaha, who is already realized, self-realized, already has assimilated this knowledge and has realized. And then what are the 4 benefits of this Gnana? The Mohanasha, Yajnatvana Punarmoham. It's knowledge, one never gets attached, never has Moha. Papanasha, Yapi Chedasi Pape. Even the biggest sinner, with the help of this boat of knowledge, he swims across Swarvagnana Plavenevam Rujinam Santarishyasi. Yathaidansi Samigdopni Bhasmasat Kurute Arjuna. Karmanasha, Gnanagni Sarva Karmani Bhasmasat Kurute Tata. All the fire in this fire of knowledge, all the karmas are also burnt away, and mala, impurities, are also burnt away, destroyed. Nahi jnanena sadrusham pavitram vidyate. It is the most pious thing, this self-knowledge. And this is, Bhagavan says, kalenatmani vindati. It takes time. This path is not an easy time. It is a time-consuming path. Finally, Bhagavan says that seekers, there are 3 types of seekers. Shraddhavan labate gnanam tatpara sanyatendriya. One who is Shraddhavan, who has faith, and one who is Tatpara, who is always trying. Sanyatendriya, one who has restrained, self-control, senses are under control. This is the person who is eligible for this kind of a knowledge. Gnanam ladva param shanti achirena digachyati. He achieves this bliss, which is long-lasting instantly with this bliss. And finally, he says, the doubting mind does not have faith, does not get this knowledge. And the final shloka, he says, Tasmad Jnana Sambhutam, with the help of this sword of knowledge, Jnana Sinatmanaha, Chitvainam Sanshayam Yogam, destroy all your doubts arising out of ignorance. He says, Yogam Attishta Uttishta Bharata. By practicing this yoga, stand up, O Arjuna, get ready for this war, do your duty, understand that this is what is Karmayoga for you, understand and attain the final truth of the existence by the Lord. With this, we come to the end of the 4th Adhyaya of Sri Geetaji. So now we start with the 5th Adhyaya of Sri Geetaji. 5th Adhyaya is called the Karma Sanyasa Yoga, and it starts with Arjuna's question. He asks, what is better, Karma Yoga or Karma Sanyasa? That is renunciation of the karma. He asks, Sanyasam Karmanam Krishna Punar Yogam Chashansati. You tell me one thing which is beneficial. I am still confused, Arjuna asked Sri Krishna. Bhagavan answers, Sannyas and Karmayog both, he says, are good. Both lead to upliftment. Sannyasa Karmayogascha Nishreyasa Karau. But out of the 2, he says, Karmayoga Vishishyate. Karmayoga is better than renunciation, because this is based on our eligibility, because Adhikaritva of Arjuna and all of us is in Karmayoga, because we are so engrossed in our actions, in our body. And that's why for us, the eligibility is in Karmayoga. But Bhagavan equates both the Karmayogi and the Sannyasi. He says, one who does not have strong raaga dvesha, know that he is ever a sannyasi. One who rises above nirdandvo mahabhava, one who rises above strong likes and dislikes, sukham bandhyat pramuchyate, he obtains his eternal bliss. And then the right understanding he shows, he says, Sankhya Yoga Pruthak Bala Pravadantina Pandita. Immature people say that knowledge path and Karma Yoga give different fruits, not the wise. He says, Ekamapyastita Samyaga Ubhayor Vindate Phalam. But if one is well determined on one path, for both the final result, for a Karma Yogi as well as for a sannyasi, both our results are the same, because karma leads to jnana, jnana leads to moksha. If one is not on the karma yoga path, at least one has the purity of the mind and then takes a jnana and then moksha. So essentially the path is the same. There is no difference. It is not that these are 2 paths. It is the part of the parcel of the one path. And then it shows that the true vision is the jnana to moksha. Yat sankhya prapyate sthanam. Also shows the same thing. that the state which is achieved by the knowledge, the same state is achieved by Karmayoga, Moksha, and one who knows well that knowledge and Karmayoga achieves the same state, knows this is Ya Pashyati Sapashyati. This is the real vision, Bhagavan says. Sanyasastu Mahabaho Dukkham Aptuma Yogataha. He says, if immaturely, if karmas are given up, karma tyaga, then it can be very painful. One who does not practice karma yoga, has not attained purity of mind, but gives up karma and attains sannyasa, then this renunciation is very painful, miserable. But yoga yukto muler brahma, but the seeker who practices karma yoga, in no time he achieves moksha, nachirena adhigacchati, liberation. And this journey from karma yoga to self-knowledge, atma jnana, Bhagavan says, yoga yukto vishuddhatma. One who has done yoga yukta achieves purity of the sign, develops vijitatma, develops control over his sense organs, shitendriya, indriya sanyam, sarva bhutatma, bhutatma. He sees all the souls, he sees all one amongst all the bodies, and he does not get bound to actions. And then what is the vision of the wise person? While doing any kind of action, naiva kinchit karomiti, all these actions when they do pashyan, shrunvan, sushan, jugran, ashnan, gachan, swapan, shashan, seeing, touching, listening, eating, sleeping, smelling, walking, breathing, all this, while they are doing this, naiva kinchit karomiti, I am not doing anything, that is their understanding. Even pralapan visrujan grunan, unmishan nimishan api, indriyan indriyarteshu, vartanta iti dharayan. Pralapan, while speaking, forgetting, accepting, opening eyes, closing eyes, all these actions. The firm understanding of this wise person that all the sense organs are engaging in the objects, naiva kinchit karomiti, I am not doing anything, and that is a firm understanding. Kayana manasa buddhya, main benefit of karmayoga, Bhagavan saying, is antakarana shuddhi. When you do these actions without attachment, it causes purification of the inner mind. And Bhagavan is asking us to practice karmayoga to achieve this peace of mind, to achieve this purity of mind. He says, Shantim apnoti naishtikam. This achieves the eternal peace. People who do the karmayoga, yukta, one who does with awareness. Ayukta, one who does not, the unaware person who does not do karmayoga, but only acts by his own raaga, dvesha, his own desires. Phale sakto nibadhyate. He remains attached to the results of his own actions. And then Bhagavan is now talking about the knowledge part, the jnana. He says, Vashi sarva karmani manasa. One who has control over the inner self by renouncing all the actions, navadware pure dehi, lives in this body of 9 gates, naiva kurvanna karayan, but does not do anything, sukham aste. He lives happily with inner bliss inside. These 9 gates are our body, which has 9 gates for all the sense organs, for all this knowledge to come in. And Bhagavan talks about the Atma Swarupa, Lokasya Srujati Prabhu. God or Atma does not create kartrutva, doership, karmani, actions, and karma phala sanyoga, attachment to the fruits of action. All this swabhavastu pravartate, it all happens in the anatma, the swabhava or the prakriti. The kshetra of the prakriti does not happen in the atma tattva. Bhagavan is trying to tell us. Bhagavan praises this jnana and compares it with the sunlight. He says, Jnanena tu tadaj jnanam yesham nashitam atmanaha. One whose ignorance is destroyed by the jnana, desham adityavat jnanam. Just like a sunlight, prakashayati tatparam, illuminates this eternal consciousness, and he knows, understands. Then he describes the spiritual journey for this jnana sadhana, for surrendering our intellect to the Supreme, aspires to be one atmanam with atma, tannishtha, firm resolve to change our sanskara, tatparayana, whose goal is very clear. Jnana, all impurities are washed by this self-knowledge. That person achieves liberation or moksha. And what is the kind of the vision that these wise people have? They have the samatva drashti. They see oneness in wise, the Brahmin, the cow, elephant, dog, and the outcast. They have the same vision. They don't have the same vyavahara, but they have the same vision. Samatva is the sadhana, and Guruji tells us Param Samatva is the sadhya. It is the goal also for us. And this Samatva person, equanimous person, is eligible for Atma Jnana. Bhagavan says that the one who does not get too happy, does not get too upset, who does not sthira buddhi sammudo brahma, is firmly established, can be firmly established in self-knowledge. Then Bhagavan describes what is the real happiness. Is it outside in the objects or it is inside in us? He says, Bahaya sparshetsu saktatma vindatyatmani yat sukham brahma yoga yuktatma sukham akshaya ashmute. One seeker who is unattached to all these outer happiness by objects obtains his eternal happiness in his own self by meditation. That balanced person is firmly connected with the divinity, and sukham akshaya sukham ashmute. He experiences everlasting divine bliss. And Bhagavan says this, wise people with this understanding do not indulge in sense gratification. Yehi sansparsha ja bhoga dukkha yo nava evate. This contact of the senses with the objects outside are the cause for dukkha, Bhagavan says, miseries. By generally it leads to overindulgence. Adhyantavanta kaunteya. Oh Arjuna, they are all coming and going, they are all transient. Nateshu ramate buddha. The Buddha, the wise people, they don't nateshu ramate, they don't indulge in this kind of sense organs and sense objects and this outside happiness. Shaknoti haivasya sodum praksharira vimokshana. Control all these desires, happiness, be happy. Bhagavan says, Kama krodot bhavam vegam sayukta sar sukhi naraha. One who is able to control in this life before the body comes to the end, the force of desires and anger. He is the person who is going to be really happy. Sasuki naraha is truly a happy person. Bhagavan is describing the attributes of the wise person, one who has anta sukha, happiness inside, anta arama, peace inside, and anta jyoti, all the light of knowledge is inside. That yogi is one with the Brahman and he achieves the liberation. And culmination of the wise, Bhagavan says, Kama krodha vyuktanam yatinam yat chetasam, one who is devoid of desires, angers, constantly puts yatinam, who is putting efforts, mind is balanced, yat chetasam, and that person achieves Brahma Nirvana, achieves eternal peace. And Bhagavan says, finally, the last three shlokas talks about the link to the sixth Adhyaya, which is the meditation. Bhagavan is describing here what needs to be done in meditation. 27 shloka, Sparshan krutva bahir bhayat, chakshushvaivantare puroho. All the objects, outer objects have to be kept outside and one has to focus on the center of the eyebrows. Pranapanav samo krutva nasabhyantar charino. All the prana, apana have to be kept in balance. The breathing has to be in balance. This is how meditation must be done. There is a very close relationship between our mind and our breath. By controlling our breath, we can control our mind, make it more quiet and more peaceful. The next shloka, Bhagavan talks about the dhyata, one who does this, yatendriya mano buddhihi, one whose mind, sense and intellect are all controlled, whose goal is also clear, vigatecha bhaya krodho, one who is letting go of all his desires, fear, anger. That person only can become a good meditator and become free. And finally, in the last shloka, Bhagavan talks about the Adhyaya. Bhagavan talks about himself, Bhoktaram Yagna Tapasam. By knowing me, who is the beneficiary of all the Yagna and the Tapa, Sarvaloka Maheshwara, I am the Lord of all the beings, Surudam Sarva Bhutanam, I am the friend of all. Without any reciprocation, I do everything for people. Jnatva Mam Shanti Muchati. One achieves this eternal bliss by knowing me, by understanding me, by being one with me in this meditation. With this, we come to the end of the fifth Adhyaya. So far, Bhagavan talked about Antakarana Shuddhi, how Karmayoga can lead to Antakarana Shuddhi, even Bhakti Yoga, even Ashtanga Yoga leads to this Shuddhi. And then we have to embark on the journey of Jnana Sadhana, Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana, to obtain this Atma Jnana, which causes. But this Atma Jnana has to be assimilated inside us. And for this, the sixth Adhyaya is a very important Adhyaya. Sixth Adhyaya of Sri Bhagavad Gita is called the Dhyana Yoga or the Atma Sanyama Yoga. And this tells us that meditation is not possible without mind restraint. We have to have some kind of control over ourselves, Atma Sanyama, over our Sharira, Mana, Indriya, Chitta, Ahankara Sanyama. And then only we can embark on this process that Bhagavan is describing in the sixth Adhyaya, which is called as the Nididhyasana, which is a Vedantic meditation, which helps us to assimilate this Atma Jnana into our daily life. So whatever we have heard Shravana, that gives us the Jnana. But to make this steady and firm, and so that the Viparyaya, the opposite samskaras, we have to take care of these, and that's why this Dhyana is very important. Bhagavan talks about many aspects of Dhyana in this sixth Adhyaya. So let us start with the first shloka where Bhagavan talks about Karma Yoga. It is very important to get the Dhyana. We have to do our Kartavya Karma, leaving the attachments, and this Karma Yogi can become a sannyasi, not just one who gives karma up. Bhagavan talks about the two nishtha. He says sannyasa is the same as Karma Yoga. It's important to leave away our binding desires, and then only we can become a yogi. And finally, in the third shloka of the sixth Adhyaya, Bhagavan describes Arurukshor Muner Yogam Karma Karana Muchyate Yoga Rudasya Tasyaiva Shama Karana Muchyate. He ends the Arjuna's dilemma of whether to do karma or jnana, whether sannyasa or karma yoga, which path is better. All this third Adhyaya, fifth Adhyaya, this dilemma that was going on in Arjuna's mind, Bhagavan is clearly saying that there are two paths. One who wants to desire to ascend on the path of yoga, Arurukshor Muner Yoga. For them, karma yoga, karma karana muchyate, karma is the means to attain this goal. Whereas yoga rudha, one who is already firmly established in this yoga, tasyaiva, for them shama karanam uchyate. For them, nivrutti, karma nivrutti, dhyana is the means to attain the divinity. Bhagavan has describing the definition of the yoga rudha in the next shloka. He says three attributes. One, yadahi nendriyarteshu, indriya sanyama, na karma swanusajjate, no attachment to actions, sarva sankalpa sannyasi, who renounces all the worldly desires, who has control over the mind. That person, yoga rudhastadochyate, that person can be said to have ascended on the path of yoga, has become yoga rudha. And Bhagavan is describing how important it is for us to make our own efforts. Uddhared atmanatmanam, natmanam avasadayet. I have to elevate myself by my own self. Don't let yourself down. Bhagavan says, Atmaiva yatmano bandhuhu. You are your own friend. Atmaiva ripuratmanaha. You are your own enemy. It's up to you how you use your mind, brain, intellect. And that's here what Bhagavan is talking about our Atma Krupa. It is a very important responsibility of the seeker. Yes, Ishwar Krupa, Guru Krupa, Shastra Krupa is important. But the most important is Atma Krupa. We have to walk on the way. We have to take some initiative. We have to create some inquisitiveness. We have to work. We have to do a lot of things to make our life eligible for going on to this path. And then in the next shloka, Bhagavan describes for whom this mind is our best friend and for whom the mind is our best enemy. Bandhuratmanatastasya yenatmaivatmana chitaha. One who has won over his body, mind, intellect. For that person, this mind, body complex is a friend for themselves. For anatmanastu shatrutve vadnatmaiva shatruvata. For the one who does not have this kind of self-restraint over itself. For oneself, mind becomes one's own enemy, Bhagavan says. And then what are the benefits of self-restraint? Bhagavan says, Jitatmana prashantasya. If you have a restraint over mind, the mind becomes very tranquil, prashant, paramatma samahita, divinity is established, and shitosha sukha dukkhesu tatha manapamanayo, achieves the samatva in all the dualities of our life. And then Bhagavan talks about what is the vision of that samatva. He sees one in all the samaloshtashma kanchanaha. He sees oneness in the sand, gold and the stones. And this integrated personality, yukta ityuchyate yogi, that integrated personality is a true yogi. So they say the same in Suran Mitra Udasina Madhyastha Dvesha Bandhusu. They see friend, foe, detached, mediator, family, saints, sinners, in everything they see, they have the same vision, they see the same Atma Tattva behind this person. Then from the 10th shloka onwards, Bhagavan starts describing the instructions for meditation. He says, Yogi yunjita satatam atmanam rahasya sthita. By contemplating on the Atma, sitting in ekaki, in isolation, yata chittatma, by keeping our mind under control, and nirashira, by without any expectations or desires, aparigraha, without becoming a possessor. With this, Bhagavan is describing the outer preparations of the dhyana, shuchau deshe pratishtapya. In a clean place, positioning, sitting steadily, must be established, seat must be established, natyuchritam natinicham, not too high, not too low, and chailajina kushottaram, cotton on a deer skin on the grass. This is a 3-layered asana that Bhagavan is describing for dhyana. And then tatra ekagram manah krutva, then steadying our mind in the goal, yata chittendra kriyaha, by bringing halt all the thoughts, actions, upavishyasane yunjat, practice the yoga, atma vishuddhaya, for the purpose of glorification of our inner self. Then Bhagavan describes the body posture during meditation. Samam kaya shiro krivam dharayanna chalam stiraha. By keeping the back, head, neck in straight line, keeping the posture and body steady. Samprekshanasikagram swam. By seeing the center of one's eyebrow and not by swam dishascha navalokayan. By not seeing in any other directions. Describing the condition of the mind, prashantatma vigatabhi, with a quiet mind, with free of fears, established in sense control, restraining the mind. Manas sanyama machitto yukta asita matparaha. This person sits in meditation. What are the benefits of meditation? Bhagavan says, Shantil nirvana paramam. Continuously engages in Atma, practices meditation, achieves eternal peace, and achieves matsanstamadi gacchati, achieves my own swarupa, Bhagavan says. And balance in our lifestyle is also needed for meditation. Natyash natashtu yogosti. One who eats too much, one who eats too little is not able to meditate. Bhagavan says, one who sleeps also too much, one who sleeps for too long or too less is also not able to meditate. Bhagavan is saying that it is the Madhyam Panth. The most benefit from meditation is Yuktahara Viharasya, one who is food, activities, actions, or a balanced person. Adequate sleep. For such a person, meditation is possible. And this meditation, Yogo Bhavati Dukkhaha, will take care of all your pain, miseries, everything will be gone with this meditation sadhana. Yada viniyatam chittam atmanyevavatishtete. This mind in the state of climax of meditation, Bhagavan says, nispruha sarva kamebhyo. He has to be, from all the objects, we have to get detached from the objects and steady our focus in our atma, withdrawing from all the anatma. This person is a yukta yogi. And the climax of meditation, Bhagavan compares the condition with a lighted lamp. Yatha dipo nivatasto ningate sopama spruta. Just as a lighted lamp without any air does not waver, yogino yata chittasya yunjato yoga matmana. Similarly, a yogi who is having a control of his mind in meditation does not waver his mind at all. And then characteristics of the yogi who has attained this divinity, Bhagavan says, with a pure mind, intellect, one he sees, remains completely satisfied in one's own self. And this yogi feels the inner bliss which is superior to the sense pleasure, sukham atyantikam. Yattata, he says, he achieves the eternal bliss, cannot be achieved by the sense organs. And the great benefit of this yam labdhva chaparam labham, there is no better benefit than this atma labha. This is the highest benefit that does not get perturbed. Purunapi vichalyate. All the pain, miseries and sufferings does not get perturbed by any of this. Tam vidyat dukkha sanyoga viyogam yoga sannityam. So know that dukkha sanyoga, that attachment with our dukkha that has happened, which is false, which is by illusion, once that viyoga, once that is taken away, then this is the real yoga. Bhagavan says, this is a yoga sadhana where we get our false attachments, we keep getting away from this. And if we continue doing this yoga nirvinna chetsaha, we do this with a lot of enthusiasm without getting tired, make it as a habit. And for this, Bhagavan is telling us, Indriya Sriyam is the first step. Sankalpa Prabhavan Kaman Stakya Sarvana Sheshataha Manasayvendriya Gramam Vinayam Samantataha. And then Bhagavan also tells us that in this process, the progress happens very, very slowly. Don't be impatient. Shanai Shanai Ruparamed Buddhya Dutri Puhitaya Atma Sanstam Manah Purpwana Kinchitapi Chintaya. Don't think of anything else. Just keep on doing this on this path with firm intellect, firmly engrossed in this Atma Tattva. And whenever the mind wanders, what do we need to do? It is very common. Whenever we close our eyes, the mind starts wandering. Bhagavan says, Yato Yato Nischarati Manaschanchalam Astiram. If the mind is agile, unsteady, for whatever reason it goes out, from there you have to get hold of it. Tatas tato niyamyai tata atmanyeva pashamnayat. Get it back and put it back in our Atma Tattva. And with this, we have to, what is the highest benefit of this meditation? Bhagavan is telling us, one achieves this peace, destroys all the impurities, achieves eternal bliss, and the mind and the senses become very quiet with this meditation. And this, with this, we commune with the Supreme Divinity and happily get the Antashuddhi, impurities are removed. And then we see the oneness in all the Sarvatra Samadarshana, Sarva Bhutastamatmanam, Sarva Bhutani Chatmani. This is the Mahavakya Updesha. We see the one in all the Bhuta, in all the beings. We see one Atma Tattva, and then we see all the beings within one Atma Tattva. And this is the vision of the Yukta Yogi. We see Yomam Pashyati Sarvatra. Bhagavan says, who sees me everywhere, sees everything within me, always sees me, and I am very close to him, that person. And this is what we have to change our vision. Sarva Bhuta Sthitam Yomam Bhajatya Tatvama Sthitaha. That Bhagavan is saying, see me in all the beings. And this should be our vision, that we can see oneness in everything. And these wise people are extremely compassionate, Atmopamyena Sarvatra, because they are seeing themselves everywhere. That's why they feel the pain and pleasure of others. And such a yogi is, Bhagavan says, is greatest in my opinion. Arjuna asks a very beautiful question, which is every seeker's experience, that Bhagavan, you are describing this yoga, it's beautiful to listen to, but he says, Etasyam na pashyami, I cannot see a firm state of this yoga. Why? He says, Chanchalatvat sthitim stiram, because my mind is very, very unsteady, wavering mind, and raaga, dvesha are there. I don't know how I can attain this sthiti. Bhagavan says, this is the situation of all of us. And he says, Chanchalam imana Krishna, this mind is very agile, very powerful, very obstinate. Tasyam nigram manyeva ayuri vasat dushkuram. To control the mind is as difficult as controlling the wind. He says, Bhagavan answers, he says, Asanshayam mahabhava. Bhagavan accepts. He says, yes, there is no doubt that controlling the mind is very difficult. Bhagavan says, but it is possible. And Bhagavan shows two solutions to controlling the mind. He says, Abhyasena to kaunteya vairagyena chagruhyate. Abhyas, constant practice, and vairagya, non-attachment to all the other objects, attachments, relations are the two key words to control the mind. He says, Asanyatatmana yoga tushprapati memati. For those who don't have any self-control, this dhyana yoga is not possible. Only vashyattamatu yatata. One who keeps trying, dhyana yoga is possible. Bhagavan says, in my opinion, we need to do constant practice for controlling our mind, changing our habits. Then Arjuna asks another question. He says, if the yogi is not successful on his journey, what happens to him? Suppose he comes to an end, he leaves his journey, or he dies on the way before reaching his goal. What is his onward journey? And whether there is any adhogati, whether there is a downward gati, apratishto, whether kachinno bhaya vibrashta, chinna bhava brahmi nashyati, does he get destroyed like a cloud? These are the questions that Arjuna asks. And he says he has immense faith in Krishna and says that Tadanya sanshaya yasya nishettana vipapadyate. No one else apart from you, Bhagavan, can clear this doubt of mine. And Bhagavan answers beautifully. He says, he gives him a solace, tells Partha, Naiveha namutra, don't worry. He says, on spiritual path, nothing goes on vain. Namutra vinashastasya vidyate. There is nothing, one who ever does elevated action does not ever go on a downward journey, and that person will never be destroyed in this world or the other. And what is the onward journey of the yoga brashta? Also Bhagavan is describing here. He says, Shuchinam Shrimatam Gehe. He will be born in a nice family, in a very prosperous family, a pious family. Or he says, Athava Yoginam Eva. Or he will take birth in the family of yogis, learned, jnanis. And with this kind of birth, there is an opportunity to reignite his, to restart his spiritual journey. And how does this onward journey start? Bhagavan says, Tatratam buddhi sanyogam labhate pahumate hikam. All his previous birth-related samskaras, they join with some nimitta. And from there he will start his sadhana. Purva bhyasena tenaiva riyate yavashopisa. This previous samskara induces him into the onward journey, and then he will reach to his final goal. So spiritual progress needs efforts, and it requires many lives. Bhagavan is telling here, Aneka janma sansiddha tato yati paramgatim. Efforts of many such lives, finally one gets moksha. One should not be disheartened. One should keep on doing our best journey. And Bhagavan praises his yogi and the path of yoga. He says, Yogi tapasvi bhyopito ko yogi gnani bhyopi patotikaha karmibhyascha yogi tasmad yogi bhavajuna. Yogi is superior to a tapa, ascetic. Yogi is superior to knowledgeable person, the gnani. He says yogi is superior to karmayogi, and therefore be a yogi. Therefore you get into this atma sanyama yoga. Bhagavan is trying to tell us that no single sadhana is good enough. You have to do comprehensive sadhana. You have to take help of tapa, yagna, jnana, karma, atma sanyama yoga, bhakti. All these sadhanas are important to reach to the ultimate divinity. And finally, the end of the Adhyaya, Bhagavan is describing who is the best yogi. He says, Yogi nam api sarvesham madgate nantaratmana shraddhavan bhajate yogam same yuktatamo mata. One who worships me with a lot of faith. Shraddhavan bhajate yogam same yuktatamo mata. He is the best yogi according to me. This is a link to what is going to come next from the 7th Adhyaya to the 12th Adhyaya. All this talking, Bhagavan is going to talk about Shraddha and Bhakti, the faith and the devotion into the Lord. And that's the connection of this last shloka. Bhagavan says, even during work, one who is connected with me, who is my bhakta, who has Shraddha, who has faith in me, who takes my name, one who joins with this yoga with the Supreme becomes a yogi. That is the best yogi in the eyes of the Lord. With this, we come to the end of today's session. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parah Brahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.